Today we're going to talk about a day that strikes fear into the hearts of millions of students and parents around the world. Yes, I'm of course talking about August 1st, the day when the new Common Application opens and signals the start of a fresh application season. Hello, and welcome to the Admittedly podcast. My name is Thomas Caleel. I'm the former director of MBA admissions and financial aid for my alma mater, the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. In this podcast, I don't promise easy answers or quick fixes, but I will use my decades of experience to help you achieve your education goals. Now let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the Admittedly podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Caleel, and today we're going to talk about a day that strikes fear into the hearts of millions of students and parents around the world. A day that makes the blood run cold, a day of terror. Yes, I'm of course talking about August 1st, the day when the new Common Application opens and signals the start of a fresh application season. But here's the thing. We don't need to go into this day with fear. We don't need to go in with trepidation. We are going in together. We are here. I am here to help you navigate this process, remove as much stress as possible, and prepare you to turn in the best application you can to highlight your strengths, avoid the pitfalls that most students make, and put you in the best position to reach your dream school. So stay with me on the podcast. We're going to be doing a lot of content around the Common App. Also remember to follow on Instagram and TikTok at AdmittedlyCo. That's at AdmittedlyCo. I really appreciate all of you who engage with me on social media. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your DMs. I'm in there every day responding. And your feedback really helps me navigate topics that I want to talk about, how I frame them, how I answer questions. Also want to mention that Common App opens on August 1st, and on August 3rd, I will be hosting a free webinar. That's Sunday, August 3rd. The details are in the details of this podcast. So go there, you can click to register, and it's going to be something really, really interesting. We host monthly free webinars. This one's going to be focused exclusively on the Common Application to give you a good running start on the new season. But today what I'm going to do is take some time and talk about the Common Application in general, what it means, what it looks like. For those of you applying to the University of California system, we're going to do something on that later because that application is distinct from the Common App. Now, there are some speculations, some things that might change this year, some things that have been announced by the College Board. So we're going to talk about those, but we're really going to get into the details on the 3rd once the application is open and we can go in and dig around a little bit. So what are you doing right now? Well, first thing you want to do is set up your Common App account. I personally would use a personal email address because if, for example, you end up on a summer wait list and you have your school address, your high school address, you don't know when that's going to be cut off, right? So start with your personal address. Universities don't care what email address you use. I would suggest setting up your own like Gmail address, like thomascollegeapps@gmail.com, for example. So you have everything in one place. You're not losing things. It's not please don't use a silly email, right, that you developed a couple of years ago, like FortniteMaster23 at gmail.com. Set up your own email address so that you can monitor it. If you want to give your parents access to that as well, that's fine, because then everybody has eyes on what matters. Every single communication with the college uses that email address. You're smart. So first thing, when you set up your Common App account, there's data entry, right? Be very, very, very careful in here. It takes time. Capitalization, punctuation matters, okay? Make sure your address is correct. Make sure that the numbers and the spacing and all these little details matter. And I know I sound like somebody who's sitting here with a red pen, eager to mark you down. And that's not the case. It's attention to detail, right? Because university life, college life, academics, there's a lot of detail in there. You're writing papers, you're taking tests. And what the universities want to know is, does this matter to you? Because if this process matters to you, if you're taking your time and you're not doing it the day before it's due, you are going to go through, you are going to catch these errors. This is an area where you can definitely have your parents or friends help. It helps to have a fresh pair of eyes on your application to say, oh, you know what? This should be capitalized. You missed a period here. Another tip, as you start to go through the Common Application, when you're done with a section, press that preview button. The preview button will generate basically a PDF view on your screen of what the university sees when it looks at your college application. And this is really, really important because sometimes when you put information in the Common App, it looks perfectly well formatted, it looks fine. But when it translates over to that screen view, now all of a sudden, maybe there's a little glitch in the spacing or maybe, between words or between paragraphs. So go in, figure it out. Don't be doing this stuff last minute. Make sure you talk to your parents, right? When did you graduate from college? When did you graduate from graduate school? If you did, right? What school did you graduate from? What was the major? These things are important. They take time, and you really have to go in and make sure that they are correct. Next section you're probably going to move on to is academics. Academics is one of those sections on the Common Application that is laborious, tedious, and backbreaking. You have to enter every course you've taken, how it's just, quarterly, semester, and the grade. It is really important. The colleges will give you very specific instructions, but generally it's do not convert your scores to a GPA. You have a lot of options there in terms of like 0 to 100, 4.0 scale, letter grade scale, IB, A levels. Pick the grading system that is correct for you and your school. Go in, enter the courses, use your transcript, right? Because if there's a discrepancy when you're admitted and they're checking everything against your transcript, that could be grounds to question and or revoke your admission. So be very, very careful and thoughtful and take your time. Remember that the academic section is different than some of the schools that require you to enter all of your coursework. That happens in a different section. Again, time consuming, drudgery. So just chip away at it a little bit at a time, because this is something where you can really jam yourself up if you're scrambling to do this at the end. I always advocate for students to do everything on their own. However, parents, if you really feel you need to get involved and you want to do something, enter the courses into the Common App. It's long work. It's hard. It takes a burden off your student. But in general, students, do this yourself. This is your future, your life. Make it count. If you change schools, you'll get a prompt, usually a little dialogue box. Please tell us why you changed schools. Be thoughtful. It's usually around 200 words. You don't need to use all 200 words. You can simply say, my family moved. But if it's more complex, like I was in a private school, I didn't like it. I didn't adjust well. I felt like the teaching was not what I needed. I wanted a larger, different experience. So I shifted over to public school or vice versa. Whatever that looks like, you have a chance there to tell your story. Now, then we move into activities. Right. Activities are very, very important. And activities, you generally have 10 spaces. You want to be thoughtful about how you organize that. Ideally, this is organized rank order, most important to least important to you. Activities should tie to the broader strategy. I mean, if you followed me for any amount of time, you know that I always talk about strategy. Why do I talk about strategy? I talk about strategy because when an admissions officer reads your application, this is not a linear march through your application. They're referencing different points at different times. And so they're looking at the activity list. They're reading your essays. They're bouncing back to the activity list. They're checking on your awards. They're looking at your recommendations, right? It's done in a very short amount of time, but there's constantly cross-referencing in there. And so you want to make sure that your activities line up with your essays. Now, if you have more than 10 activities, and many of you do, you're going to have to use some judgment here. If you have fewer than 10 activities, but you've done them really deeply and well, that's okay. You don't need to throw in activities just to fill up that list. Likewise, you really don't want to throw in any activities from middle school or earlier than high school. If there's continuity since middle school, that's fine. If you've been playing a sport or doing an activity for 10 years, then by all means indicate that. They're going to ask you your position. They're going to ask you the organization name, what it does. And then you have about 150 characters usually to describe it. In the description, I want you being economical with your language. Don't start with, I was the captain of the soccer team. They know that from the information above. Talk about leadership, talk about awards, talk about tournaments, talk about things that you did, and abbreviate as much as you can. Now, if it's a very important activity, then odds are you'll also be addressing it in one or more of your essays. So keep that in mind. The other thing a lot of schools have done these days is they've allowed you to input a resume. So if you do a resume, a couple things. If you're going to upload a resume, number one, it should always be in PDF form. Number two, it should under no circumstances be more than 2 pages unless you have an extensive list of research papers that you've published, or let's say an extensive athletic resume where you are a competitive athlete, highly competitive athlete, usually being recruited, and you want to include all the awards, tournaments, et cetera, that you've won. But really for a high school student, you don't need more than 2 pages. Be smart, be concise, focus on actions taken and results achieved. Don't just list things on the page just for the sake of listing them. But fill out your activities. Remember, hours per week and weeks per year. This is really important. If you do something for 2 hours 1 week or 2 weeks a year, that should not be a primary activity for you. Universities now are looking at, if you really love something, you're probably doing it during the summer, but then also during the school year as well. And these kind of overarching continuous activities are becoming more and more important because it shows, hey, you know what? I really love this subject. I was curious about it. And so I went deeper on it. That's not to say that if you have to work, if you have to take care of family members, these are equally strong, equally valid activities. And in fact, there's a section in the Common App that you can mark that you have to do that, how many hours you do it. And what it does is the universities realize that a lot of students were saying, look, I've got these other responsibilities that don't fit neatly into an activity category, and I feel like I might get penalized for that, but it does take a lot of my time. So they're specifically giving you permission. They're giving you space to do that. So take advantage of that, please. There's also a section for awards. Many students will start to panic if they don't have awards. Every student is different. And it's really important to keep this in mind. There will be students that have multiple awards, and there will be students who have no awards. And both of them can be equally successful at top programs. The question is just, how are you positioning yourself and how are you evidencing your interest in things, right? The strategy here comes from starting by thinking ahead. What do I want to study? Now, how have I evidenced my interest in this particular subject? And that's really, really important, right? Because you might do things that take some time and you care about, but don't really line up with the strategy that you're trying to tell. Now, that may change school over school. So you might have different activities for different schools. You might prioritize their order differently. But the most important thing is, am I telling a story that shows me being proactive, showing leadership, showing involvement? No, you don't have to have leadership in the classic sense. If that's not you, I did a podcast on introverts. If you are more introverted, I would say go take a listen to that, because what it does is it says, look, how have you made an impact? How have you evidenced curiosity and drive? And that can be typical leadership on a team or in a club or a musical, or it can be something more personal where you're doing research in a lab with a team, or you're doing individual sports or things like that, where it's not as clear, but you still are able to make that case. All right. So now we've got our structure. We think we know what we want to major in. We've kind of organized our activities around that. And now we're thinking, okay, we have to get to the essays. Well, you get 7 prompts in the Common App. I always suggest using prompt number 7. You can use other prompts if you want to generate ideas, but I like the idea of being able to just free write, to write what you want to the admissions officer. Now, we're going to get into the details and mechanics of essay writing, and our Early Edge Plus scholars have access to a lot of materials, webinars, office hours on this. But at the end of the day, no, you do not need a trauma essay. Yes, there is a big difference between an English essay and an admissions essay. No, you should usually not write about family members. All right. These are big, tend to be big controversial statements, right? You don't need a trauma essay. You will read a lot of trauma essays or major life event essays on the internet. Stay away from those. For some students, that is the modality. That is their story. But for most students, it's really not. Figure out how to distill the essence of who you are. Show the readers. Don't tell the readers. Evidence. Don't talk about activities. Talk about values and who you are, and then use those activities to illustrate, to show the reader how you live that, evidence that, manifest that. Don't talk about family. Family leads you down the rabbit hole. I love that people admire their parents, and you can drop a quick line in there, but don't over rely. We don't need a story about your grandparents. We don't need a story about your parents. You can get to the point and then talk about yourself. Finally, there's a huge difference between an English essay, one that you write for English, or one that your English teacher has edited, and an admissions essay. Admissions essay is written in a very artificial style, usually. English teachers, I love English teachers. I remember the names of my English teachers from high school. They had just a tremendous impact on me as a person and a scholar, and I love them. But English teachers are interested in like story and beauty and arc. And what happens a lot of times with an English essay is that you get a long story, and at the end, it's like, oh, and from that, I learned responsibility and growth and how to, listen to other people. It's like, no. We need to evidence that throughout the essay instead of just jamming it in as an afterthought at the end. So that is very, very important, and I want you to keep that in mind. And the last thing I'll throw in there is no gimmick essays. No metaphors, no my box of photographs and here's 5 vignettes from my life, no poetry, no creativity. Unless you are applying as a poet and you've won awards as a poet, even then it's not a good idea. But we got a lot more to say on essays, and I'm going to go really into that in August. But for right now, let's write that essay. There are 2 new essays this year, supplemental essays in the Common App. One asks about a hardship or challenge that you may have faced. The other is additional information. The additional information has been reduced from 650 to 300 words. And it's very, very important that you only use those if you need to. Don't feel like if you don't have a hardship, you're at a disadvantage. It's perfectly fine to not have a hardship. Don't put information in the additional information essay just to do it, just because you're like, oh, free space, might as well use that. That gets to judgment, and judgment is something you are evaluated on. Next thing you want to do is make sure that you set up your counselor and recommenders, that you have asked them, that they're aware of why you're applying, where you're applying. You make sure that they receive the invitations, and you follow up on that. Next thing you want to do is go and build your supplement list. Take the schools you know you want to apply to, put them on your supplement list. Then go into the early action, early decision schools and put the data in. Click the major boxes. Why? Because many times that spits out a new essay prompt. And I can't tell you how many times I get students in my DMs, in my comments, panicking because the day before the application is due, or sometimes hours before. And they're like, oh my gosh, I just clicked on biology major and it threw up another 400-word essay. What do I do? Well, you're not going to do anything good in that period of time. And now you've just kicked an early school into a regular decision and hurt your chances at admission. So we want to be focused. We want to think ahead. We also want to start doing our research on schools. Why are you majoring in that? What's unique about the major? What's unique about the school, so that you can answer the why us essay. with integrity, with clarity, with honesty. There's no right answer here or wrong answer, right? The right answer is, why is it the right place for you? So if you find yourself saying, well, there's a diverse student body and these great professors, you can save that for the website. You can save that for the brochure. This is about your experience through the school. The entirety of this application is about you. It needs to tell your story. It needs to draw the admissions officer in and show them, this is who I am, unapologetically. Here's my wins. Here's my losses. Here's things I did well. Here's things I could do better at. Okay. So take your time. We have a lot to talk about on the Common Application. We have a lot to talk about on August 3rd. I can't wait to see you on the webinar. I will be doing live Q&A to answer your questions. Please remember to sign up. The link is in the information details on this podcast. I want you, please, and thank you for those who already do, go to our socials on TikTok, Instagram, @AdmittedlyCo. I'm going to be talking a lot about the Common App, about essays. We have a lot to share with you. We want you engaged. What's on your mind? What concerns you? What problems are you running into? What wins are you having? Please share those experiences. I'm happy to answer your questions. I'm happy to answer your DMs. In fact, I look forward to it, and I really, really, really appreciate it. So August 1 is the day the curtain rises and we get going. So take your time, breathe. There's a lot here, but I've got you. We're going to do this together. We're going to get you to your dream school. And you know what? We're going to have fun doing it. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Please take a moment to subscribe to the Admittedly podcast and download this episode. I welcome you to share your thoughts and questions with me. You can find us on social media @AdmittedlyPodcast. I look forward to continuing our journey.